Hi, welcome to Life Camera Author. I'm Jim Juno, and this is a show where we talk with authors who write books about Hollywood or authors from Hollywood. And I have with me now a very special guest. Her name is Annie Korzen. And if you've seen the TV show Seinfeld, and to be honest, who hasn't, she played Mrs. Clumpus on the show, and also the probably one of the most annoying airplane passengers that you would ever want to meet. And her book is called The Book of Annie: Humor, Heart, and Chutzpah from an Accidental Influencer, and it's published by Permuted Press. I want to get that right. Welcome to the show, Annie.
I'm showing the book right here.
There it is, The Book of Annie. Yes,
By the way,
indeed.
my character on Seinfeld, they called me Doris Clumpus.
Doris Clumpus.
Doris
Okay.
Clumpus. I was down in the condo in Florida where we were Jerry parents' neighbors.
Yes, that's right. And you appeared on several episodes, and basically let me ask you about how you landed that role, because that was, of course, that wasn't your first role, but that's probably the most memorable role that you landed. And just tell me a
It's
little
been
bit about that.
important. It's been
Yeah.
important for me. I had moved to LA from New York, hoping to get work. I not getting it very much work. And one day my agent called and he said, look, there's this new show. I don't know anything about it, just a couple of lines. And a better known actress at his agency had turned down the audition because she said, it's not substantial enough for me. A couple of lines. And I don't say no to anything. I didn't. So I said, yeah, sure, I'll go in. And the big joke was, I can barely drive. And in order to get to the audition, I had to go from in LA, I live in central LA, I had to get to something called the Valley. And I was very nervous about doing that because I knew it required a highway and I can't drive on highways. But there is a way to avoid the highway. So I knew if I made the turn off to Cahuenga, I could be okay. So the day of the audition, I went very foolishly on my own. And I missed that turnoff to the surface road. So I found myself during rush hour on the fast lane of the Hollywood freeway. Okay, going at my usual top speed of 32 miles an hour. And in order to get to the exit to CBS for the audition, I had to cross 6 lanes of rush hour traffic.
Oh my gosh.
And I thought, okay, I'm going to die now. This is it. This is the end of my life. And I cautiously get it. And that's when I got to that audition. And I got this very minor role in an unknown show. And when the show aired, my husband watched it with me and he said, well, I don't get it. It's not about anything. And now he does not go to bed without watching at least 3 episodes a night, at least 3. And I got that tiny role and it changed my life because I didn't know that it would recur. I
Right,
just did
right.
that one day. They called me in and they called me in again and they called me in again and they called me to do a second character. And I would say, quite frankly, and I've done very little. I mean, my lines don't up. I once added them up. I think I have a total of 27 lines on all 4 or 5 episodes that I did. And those 27 lines in residuals since 1991 have earned me over $100,000.
Oh my
Not
gosh.
only and the checks keep coming in because it's always recurring. It's always I get Jerry sends me a check regularly. And I sometimes say I often think about that actress who turned it down because that show changed my life. Being a recurring on Seinfeld, it just raises your stock in the business. So I started getting more auditions and I started getting more respect only because, and I have to say, it's one of the themes in my book. I have a mantra. I have a mantra in my life. I try to have this mantra, which is just say yes. I don't regret things I haven't done. I mean, I'm sorry, it's the opposite. I don't regret anything I've done. I only regret the things I haven't done. So they said to, and by the way, one of the reasons that actress turned down that job is there's a common wisdom in Hollywood. If you take a job as a bit player, you'll be stuck in that category. And in some ways, it's been true for me, but in some ways, it hasn't. I certainly don't regret doing a few lines, being a bit player on a show like on a global show like Seinfeld. So that's the
Of course not.
story.
Yeah.
Just say yes. That should be your mantra. Just say yes. You don't know what anything you do is going to lead to.
What was the atmosphere like on the show? I mean, of course, it was was it the early days of the show when you were on, I believe?
It was very early because, as I say, it hadn't caught on yet. Nobody knew. I mentioned to a few friends, and one friend said, "Oh yeah, what's that? It's a pretty good show." This is 1991. I'm talking about.
Oh
The
my
show
gosh, yeah.
took quite a while to catch on, and it was a very friendly and very respectful. Uh, and fun. I had fun with the other actors. I actually got to know Jason Alexander, and many years later, I played his sister in a theater in a production of Prisoner. Neil Simon played Prisoner of Second Avenue. I played one of his sisters. So he and I have remained in touch. And some of the other actors I knew before. Jerry Stiller I know or knew. And it was a very fun, kind of very New York atmosphere. There was always takeout Chinese food. There was a lot of Jewish stuff going on. One time we stopped filming early one day because Jerry wanted to go to services on Yom Kippur, which is the holiest of Jewish holy days. And he wanted to make it to temple that night when services started. But it was very congenial, and people were nice.
See, that's what it seemed like. It seemed like everybody liked everybody on that show.
I got that feeling. I got that feeling.
Yeah, I mean, usually too often you see egos getting in the way of once a show becomes successful.
I'm sure that happened. It's hard to avoid that. But basically, you know what they say on any show, the atmosphere of the show starts at the top. And Jerry Seinfeld is a very pleasant, um, a convivial, respectful guy. I know I've in New York, I've sometimes seen him on the street and I've stopped to chat. He'll just stop and chat. He doesn't have a lot of ego about who he is or what he does. And I think that kind of feeling prevailed on the show. You felt you were in a safe place.
Hard to believe it's been 30 years, over 30 years
It's
now.
amazing. Now I have
Yes.
a theory. You want to hear my theory about, do you have your own theory about what made that show the global success that it became? Do you have a
Bas
theory? A lot written
ba
about that, but I've got the real answer.
okay, well, basically I thought it didn't deal with issues. I mean, you would never it wasn't ever a like what's
It's
happening
not
in
a
the world.
message show. No,
Right.
not a,
But it was something people could relate to, like trying to find your car in a parking lot.
totally
Be,
relatable. Totally
you know,
relatable.
yeah, I mean, I can understand it because I've had that issue. I've had that, well, an issue, you know, as I
Right.
get
Or
older.
reserving a car and then you come to the reservation desk and they don't have one. And he says, but I reserved it. Do you understand what reserve means? That's one of the classic. But my theory, I agree with you that it's all very human, relatable issues. Um, but my theory goes like this. If you really think about it, these people, they're not very nice people. They're kind of selfish, they're kind of lazy, they're kind of manipulative. They're not great moral giants, Jerry and his friends. Jerry is more than his friends, actually. But his friends are kind of scuzzy in a lot of ways, right? And they steal and they borrow from him and they don't bring back and they break each other. They get each other into a lot of trouble. But at the end of the day, what happens on that show and with those people, they always, without saying it, they always forgive each other. They always support each other. They always have each other's backs. You're going to the airport, I'll give you a ride. You have a problem with this? Here, let me call my, you know. And the big theory about television sitcoms has always been you want the viewer to feel that he's joining a family, that he's part of a family. There's even one called Modern Family. TV
Exactly. Yeah.
sitcoms are about families. And Larry David would hate me if I ever said this because he doesn't like anything sentimental. But Seinfeld is about family. It's about being with people who expect you for who you are, warts and all. You can be crazy, you can be the world's worst dancer like Elaine, you can be an idiot, total lunatic like Kramer. It doesn't matter. If you're my friend, you're my friend forever. And they end up forever, don't they, at the end? They end up together forever. It's a family. And I think that's why people all over the world watch that show.
And I totally agree with you. Yes, I get that. I get that feeling when I'm watching the show, even to this day, that these are friends who really love each other, and they take advantage of sometimes every once in a while, but they really, when bottom line is, they love each other.
And they
And
forgive each other and they accept each other, right?
exactly. And I also got that feeling from reading your book. Now we're gonna
Oh,
mention the book of Annie. I mean,
oh yes.
yeah, and
The Book of
it
Annie,
the
humor,
book
heart,
of
and
Annie.
chutzpah. Is this too pushy? Is this the pushiest guess you've ever? Here,
No.
I'll do it like this. Humor, heart, and chutzpah from an accidental influencer. That's me. On
Well, the,
Amazon and Barnes and Noble and Audible, blah, blah,
all
blah.
the good spots. Yes, and do that. And if you're going to a brick and mortar store going, they'll order it for you and you'll have it, So but really, I mean, the book itself though, I had a feeling that, like even from scenes from a marriage, where you talk about, like, yeah, you bicker with each other.
We
That's
do.
normal. It's
We
normal
do.
though. I mean,
I
it's
think
it's
maybe we do it more than normal. I don't know. I've seen couples that seem so not like that.
Tony. It looked like you were
Maybe that,
searching for a word there.
maybe you're right.
So I mean,
Uh,
yeah. I mean,
but
yeah.
wait,
I
you were
mean,
going to say something. I interrupted you about the
oh no, no.
book.
I was gonna. Oh yeah, I was gonna say. And I mean, I love how you talk about like even from the beginning. I'm gonna start there with happiness. You say there are people who find happiness in everything. I don't like those kind of people. And it's
Right.
not it's not real. I mean, that's the feeling I get is that people who are like that are not real. They're phony. But your book is
Huh.
honest, and yes,
I hope
people,
so.
yeah. I mean, it's like, and I
I
and I'm
appreciate that.
and I'm getting to the age now where I can remember things that never happened more clearly, like Mark Twain said, more clearly than ever before, you know.
Right. Right. But it's funny that you use that word about being honest. My whole TikTok adventure has been, how shall I say it? The TikTok popularity led to the book. And what happened is all my life I have been criticized for being too honest, too talkative, too opinionated. I was told these are unattractive qualities in a woman, that women shouldn't express themselves as candidly as I do. And I've always apologized for being that way, but I'm a Bronx girl. This is what Bronx girls are like. We speak our minds. Now, with TikTok, and now because of the book, how shall I say it? I am being celebrated for the qualities I always apologize for. So that's another theme in the book, which is that don't be trapped by other people's negative opinions of you.
Right.
You have to be your truest self. You're without hurting people, but you've got to be your honest self. And it's taken me many, many, many decades to learn this, to be myself unapologetically.
And that's one of the things I admired about the book is that yes, you admit that this is me, and it's I don't want to say warts and all, but I mean it is basically an honest reflection of you.
I hope so. I mean, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to share. Uh, I do something called storytelling. I don't know if that is, if you ever listen to the Moth. It's a new sort of literary form. It's called the humorous personal essay. And I've been doing it for many years. And that's what got me interested in TikTok. And that's really, the book is really just a collection of, I hope, humorous and I hope poignant essays and observations about my life and about life in general. What does it take to have a good marriage or to be a good friend or to save money? I've always been a thrifter, by the way, because I was brought up poor. My parents were poor immigrants. And we never wasted anything. We never wasted money. And that's the way I've always lived. I didn't know that this is a big thing now with younger people. Did you know that thrifting is like a major trend now? That kids are buying their clothing in thrift stores and at yard sales the way I've
Mhm.
always done. That people are trying to recycle, that people are trying not to buy retail as much as, we have this whole very materialistic society that we live in. I am not going to spend $5,000 on a handbag. It's just not, even if I had $1 million in the bag, I wouldn't do it. There's something offensive to me about that. But when I started talking about it on TikTok and writing about it, I didn't know that I was part of a trend. I thought that was just me and the way I've always lived.
No, I can relate to it because I mean, even like before we started the interview, I showed you what
I
I was able
loved
to
it.
do. And I mean, Goodwill, I mean, monitors for $35, so but yeah,
I
I mean,
love
it's
that you did that.
the amazing thing. And my son was telling me that I should go to estate sales. So, and he's like 30 years old, which means that he's already, I guess, the cheap gene has already.
No, but I'm saying
Yeah.
he's of that generation where they're into thrifting. I don't, estate sales are actually too high for me because estate sales, if he means what I mean by an estate sale, there's somebody who organizes it and is very serious. And I go to yard sales because estate sales can be too expensive unless you go on the last hour of the last day and then they just want to give everything away. They want to get rid of it all. But
I
that's
keep telling
interesting
him,
that your son told you about that. That's interesting to me.
yeah, he looks for bargains just like I do, I guess, and he told me estate sales are better than Goodwill or yard sales. But I said, no, they're more expensive, Jordan. So but yeah, I mean, I can understand the young people. I mean, first off, the prices are getting very high,
It's ridiculous. I can't
Yeah.
believe what people pay for things, quite frankly.
I
For
mean, yeah.
something that's not that well made, that's made in China in some sweatshop, and that's not that well made. And the price, I mean, I don't get it. I just don't. The only things I buy retail are underwear and shoes. That I don't want used. That I don't want used.
No, that's
Actually, I
I,
have friends. I have friends who collect cowboy boots, which are very collectible, and they find them on the cheap at yard sales and thrift stores and stuff. You know,
wow.
but
See,
no, I don't. I wasn't not brought up to waste money. I can't do it. It's not in my not who I am.
now you said the book grew out of your TikTok series, and on TikTok, how can people find you? Let's find out. How can people find you on TikTok?
Oh, thank you. I should have. It's A Korzen. A
A
Korzen.
course.
So it's my name instead of Annie Korzen. It's just I should have sent you a link. I should have sent you a link to post.
That's
A
okay.
Korzen.
Yeah. So people can go
Uh
on TikTok, search AKORZEN, and they'll find
yes.
you.
Yep.
But how did you get? No, I gotta ask you this. I mean, how did you get involved with TikTok?
It's the weirdest thing. Again, it's part of my mantra of just say yes. I got friendly with a young woman. Now, I'm really old. I am 85. Okay. This was a couple of years ago, so I wasn't this old. And she was 30. But we just connected. We got friendly. We just talk about this and that. And I said to her, I do this thing called storytelling, but I'd like to find a larger audience. And I'm thinking maybe of shooting some little clips and putting them on Instagram. And because she's 30, she said, oh, Instagram, that's so toxic. That's so last decade, um, last century. You have to go on TikTok. And I said, are you crazy? Why would anybody want to see this old urban Jewish lady on TikTok, which is all about beautiful young girls shaking their beauties and putting on makeup and show you the latest? And she said, trust me, you would go viral. And I said, yeah, why not? I thought I
Yeah,
can't lose anything. And I now have over 400,000 followers all over the world.
400,000. Wow.
400, and they stop me in the street and they're young. I didn't think they were my audience. I thought my target audience was people like me, women of a certain age, educated, urban, into the arts, blah, blah, blah. No, the kids stop me on the street. And I don't get it. I don't even get it. And I say to them, why are you interested in anything I have to say? And they use that word that well, no, they don't say, they say, because you're authentic. What does authentic mean? It gets back to what we were talking about before, about being honest, about being candid. And they say, I have wisdom, which they're right about. I do. I have wisdom, and I hope I inspire them. So they want to know, how do I live my life? What kind of work do I do? What kind of partner do I find? I have answers to a lot of those things because I've made enough mistakes in my life that I have acquired some information that's worth sharing.
When did I gotta ask you this? When did you realize that, hey, or how I've got a lot of followers all of a sudden? Was it immediate, or did it
No,
grow
well,
over time?
it happened pretty fast, I will say. And my first TikToks were talking about things like dating and marriage and being single and lifestyle and thrifting. But I did a TikTok. This is why I say accidental. I had Mackenzie was filming me, and I never say in advance what I'm going to talk about. We just talk, and we don't edit and we don't repeat. It's just because we want it to be very real and very spontaneous. And I started talking about donuts because I remember when I was growing up, a donut was something fried and crispy. It was moist and it was crispy on the outside, moist on the inside. That's the original Southern. Well, you live in the South. I
Hmm.
guess you must know about donuts more than I do. So I asked her while she was shooting, I asked her, have you ever had a Krispy Kreme? And she said, yeah. And I said, was it crispy? And she said, no. And I said, right, right. And she put up her hand and she stopped me there. I said, Mackenzie, why did you stop? I was going to go on. I was going to talk about that donut should be crispy, like the kind I remembered with powder. She said, Annie, you have just recorded the perfect TikTok. This is going to go viral. And it did. Immediately, that TikTok has been seen. Somebody told me they looked at it. It's been seen over 1 billion
Oh my
times.
gosh.
But it's a total misunderstanding because I'm just talking about TikToks. They think I am showing somebody who is in an awkward conversation and just making empty small talk, just conversation, doesn't know what to talk about. So they put a whole other meaning on it than I intended. And it's been seen on they share it on things that I'm not on, like Twitter and Insta and wherever,
It was on
all
Inside
over
Edition,
the
wasn't it?
all over the yes, I've been on. Yes, Dr. Phil called and
Dr.
NBC
Phil,
News.
yeah.
I've been and Inside Edition. You're quite right, and I was on the front page of the LA calendar section. It's crazy, but I love it because I'm an attention whore. I've always wanted attention. I love it when people stop me in the street. Oh, can I tell you how much I love you? Absolutely, you can tell me because I've never heard this before in my life. I've always been told I'm not lovable. And another thing they tell me is that I'm beautiful. I've never heard that, ever.
Well, yeah, I mean, you're natural and it comes across that way.
Well, I'm glad you think so. I've spent my life believing that I am unpleasant and unattractive.
Oh,
And now
no.
I've changed my mind about that.
How long have you been doing the TikTok? Doing that? Well, I sound
Do
old.
you know something weird?
Doing the TikTok.
We we literally started it uh March 2020, 1 week before lockdown.
Oh
We
my
literally,
God.
and I think I was fortunate, not that there was any fortune about the lockdown, but I think we were fortunate in the timing because when we started it, people were stuck at home. They had nothing else to do but look at my stupid videos talking about my stupid issues. So I think it was a good time to start something like that.
I tell you, are you planning any more books?
I have an idea with a friend, but we're not sure yet. It's a lot of work. writing a book is easy. It's selling the book that's a lot of work. So some of it is fun like this. I love doing a podcast with someone like you, but kind of pushing and banging your head and trying to get attention, uh um it's a full-time job. It's a full-time job. You
Oh,
probably know that from all the other authors. And by the way, I applaud you. I applaud you for supporting authors. People have stopped reading. A lot of people have stopped reading.
see that's something thank you so much for that because that's something I really pride myself on is that it is I feel that maybe people aren't interested in reading. Okay, fine. If they're not, they're not. But I kind of really talking to people like you really makes it fun for me.
I
And
hope so. Yeah.
and I don't think there's enough time devoted to authors. I mean, this is a half-hour show, and
Mhm.
most of the time, if you're interviewing an author, if they're on the Tonight Show or whatever, they're going to be in front of a whole lot of people. Okay, I give you that. But usually the interview is like 5 minutes and or 7 minutes,
Okay.
and usually it's like, so why did you write this book? And then it's a commercial
Right.
time.
Yeah, yeah. No, you're quite right that you're doing something in depth, and I think that's great. I have in one of my TikToks, I said, it was a very short one. Here's how I would pick the next president of the United States or any politician running for any office. I would just ask one question. What's the last book you read? And that would tell me everything I need to know about that person.
Or if they've read a book, you know.
Yeah, right. If they stab, if they can't answer, if they have trouble answering the question, that's a piece of useful information, right?
That is true, and that is true, and that's a good question to ask them. Well, the book itself is called The Book of Annie, Humor, Heart, and Chutzpah from an Accidental Influencer. The
You
author's
pronounce
name.
chutzpah very well for a Southerner. Usually the New Yorkers get it, and people from other parts of the country, they stumble on that. How come you knew how to say that?
Well, what happened is that I was married to a Jewish woman, uh,
Oh, there you go.
and my son was raised Jewish. But when he got married, he turned Catholic, and but what happened is that he married a doctor. She's a doctor, so my mother-in-law, who's Jewish, and his mother, they're happy because they now have a doctor in the family, you know.
That's right. That's the important thing, right?
Exactly. So, but the author's name was Annie Korzen, and of course the book is The Book of Annie. You can find it at Amazon, Barnes and Noble, or any bookstore. Go into your brick and mortar store and support them. Annie, I want to thank you for being on Lights Camera Author tonight.
Oh, it was my pleasure.